having today. And of course, the main topic, as already mentioned, is the possible use of GLEIF data for the statistical business registers. We will have two people from our office mainly speaking today. The generic introduction will be done by my colleague Ricco Dun from the Business Operations Unit, after which the LEI data access part of the meeting will be presented by Christoph Schneider, our head of IT, who have already developed all the search possibilities and the main access to all the data. Before I give the floor to Shuwe, I would like to ask once more to switch off your microphone if you're not speaking, because all the background noises are a bit disturbing. So please set your system to mute if you're not speaking. Fabio, do you want to give a little bit more introduction from the side of the Wiesbaden Group?
Hello, hello, Ricco.
Hello.
Fabio speaking. I think we have a good introduction by yourself, and I don't see other thing to add. Maybe we can start directly.
Okay.
I think it's better.
All right, then we start directly, and I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Ricco Dun to give a generic overview of the LEI, the GLEIF, and the GLEIS. Ricco.
Thank you, Ricco. First, I would like to ask if anyone can also hear me there.
I can see you guys.
Okay, perfect. Also, on the screen, I have shared some slides, and it will help also everyone to go through. I heard there are some background noise, so it would be great if whoever is not speaking, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. So first, thank you all for your interest in the global LEI system. And Ricco has introduced me already. My name is Ricco Dun. I work in GLEIF in the Business Operations Department as Business Relations Manager Team Lead, mainly in charge of the relationship with all the LEI issuing organizations, which are also called LOUs. Later, I will give you some more details about these organizations as well. I believe some of you already know about LEI and GLEIF, yet I would like to provide you a very brief overview of the global LEI system, especially for those organizations who are not very familiar with the system yet. I will start with a brief history of LEI. So the story starts from the financial crisis happened in 2008. During the crisis, so it posed a very difficult question to all the regulators and also market participants all over the world, which is how to identify parties to transactions across markets, products, and regions, and also this parties' relationship with other companies. And the US regulator and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority acknowledged also the lack of a standard system to connect entity identification globally. Therefore, in 2011, G20 called upon the Financial Stability Board to take a lead in developing this LEI system and also the supporting governance. Afterwards, the charter of the LEI Regulatory Oversight Committee, which is in short LEI ROC, was endorsed in 2012. And the Global LEI Foundation, in short GLEIF, was founded as a non-for-profit organization in 2014. So the global LEI system operates in 3 tiers. The first tier is the LEI ROC, which is a group of more than 70 public sector authorities. The LEI ROC oversees GLEIF to ensure that GLEIF upholds the principles of the global LEI system. The second tier is GLEIF itself. GLEIF supports the implementation of the global LEI system by making available the global LEI index. Later, I will also talk more about it. GLEIF is registered in Switzerland with a physical office sitting in Frankfurt, Germany. It is a rather small organization with approximately 35 employees from 19 countries. We at GLEIF also maintain a network of LEI issuing organizations as partners, and these organizations are called the local operating units, in short, LOU, who are also the third tier of the system. Currently, there are 33 LOUs operating in almost 30 countries, and some of them are also members of the Wiesbaden Group, for example, FSO and INSEE. LOUs provide LEI registration, renewal, and other relevant services, and they are also the primary interface for legal entities wishing to obtain an LEI. So in the end, what is LEI? LEI is in short for Legal Entity Identifier. It is a 20-digit alphanumeric code developed based on the ISO 17442 standard. It contains key reference information of a legal entity, which enables clear and unique identification of the legal entity in financial transactions. For example, LEI answers the question of who is who by identifying the legal name, legal jurisdiction, address, and other reference data, as you can see on the slide with GLEIF's own LEI, which is also issued by FSO. Especially the LEI contains the Registration Authority ID, which is based on the Registration Authority List, RA list, developed by GLEIF. This RA list contains more than 700 registration authorities around the world, and the LOU need to validate the data provided by the legal entity based on the entity ID against specific registration authority on the list. On top of it, LEI also indicates the legal form of the legal entity via ELF code, which is Entity Legal Form Code maintained by GLEIF. The ELF code list is based on the ISO standard 20275 and currently contains more than 1,800 legal forms in different jurisdictions. My colleague Ricco is also the lead for developing the RA list and also the ELF code list. So beyond the basic information, LEI also answers the question of who owns whom. This is being conducted via Level 2 data collection, started from May 2017. So legal entities who want to acquire LEI needs to report their direct and consolidating parents to the LOUs. And the LOU shall then validate the parent information and then publish the data in the global LEI system. So all the above information is being consolidated in the global LEI index repository and also can be easily found and accessed using the LEI search tool developed by GLEIF. The global LEI open, standardized, and high-quality legal entity reference data. Since December last year, GLEIF released the LEI Search 2.0 beta version, which also enables users to search for parent information. And my colleague, Christoph Schneider, will introduce this search tool in more details afterwards. With that, I will take a pause and ask if there are any questions regarding the basic information of the global LEI system.
Anybody who would like to pose a question on this?
Okay, so if there are no more questions, then I will hand it over to my colleague Ricco to continue.
Okay, thank you very much, Shue, for this generic overview. I see a message in the chat that there is no sound. Is that solved again? I hope so. I presume people can hear us.
I can hear you.
Okay, then I trust that other people can do as well. Christoph, I have already introduced you quickly, our head of IT and head of the team who is responsible for the development of the LEI services, and also, of course, for the access, which is possible via several different means. Christoph will go into the access possibilities and also into the possibilities for the use which your statistical business managers could make of the LEI data. Christoph, over to you, please.
Thank you, Ricco, for introducing me, and thank you to the group for having me today. As Ricco already explained, I'm Christoph Schneider, head of IT, and in this role responsible for the overall development and operations at the Global LEI Foundation. And as part of our service offer, we make available LEI data via various channels, as you can see already in the agenda. So we offer a web-based search tool, which displays and makes available LEI data. We have an API, an application programming interface, that makes LEI data accessible, and we ship the whole LEI data in files for download, various formats, which can also be consumed then for on-premise processing. And I will give an overview about these three channels, and instead of some slides, I thought it would be better to just show it live how it works, and you can ask questions at any point, so please don't hesitate to interrupt me whenever you're interested in something or more detail. Otherwise, I would just give a tour through these three access channels, and then we can see where we're getting. So I will try to share my screen now. And people should now see a browser with the GLEIF website with some guy in blue.
It's visible, Christoph.
All right. So this is the GLEIF website, www.gleif.org, for those who have not been there before. And basically, all the channels that we just discussed are accessible directly from the start page. So if you scroll down a little bit, there is LEI Search, which is now in a version 2.0 beta stadium since 11 December last year. So it's brand new released, and it's out there for a public feedback phase for 6 months until June. So if you look at it and if you have suggestions or questions, then please feel free. The website states how you can contact us and provide us this feedback. We're very interested in user feedback to see how we can even improve it. The other channels are below here. So here in the center of the page, you find the golden copy and delta files, which is the file service. And to the right of that, the so-called LEI Lookup API, which is the application programming interface that we have currently in production. But we're also working on an extended version, and I will talk about that a little bit later. So let us start with the search. You could either enter it by clicking here, but also we have on the right upper corner on each website page the search bar that you can directly use, and you will get to this new search tool. And it has two modes. It has a simple mode and an expert mode. And the simple mode is basically your LEI Google, if you want to say so. So whatever kind of information you have that you want to use to find an LEI, be it name, any piece of the address, even business register numbers, or now new with version 2.0 of the search, a big code that is mapped to an LEI, you can just enter it here and find something. So I'll just do some examples and show you how you can navigate through that. And again, please ask questions anytime. So I'm looking for Citigroup Incorporated here. It also comes with some suggestions, what you could mean, and also if there are misspellings, then you get, like with Google, you get an offer of what you could have meant. So we're going for Citigroup Incorporated. and get a list of search results. And if you might wonder, well, not all of the search results have Citigroup Inc. in their name. That's because the search searches basically in all fields of an LEI record. So even if that's a part of an address or some other name or some transliterated name, you would find it. And we'll just click on Citigroup Inc. and get the detail page with, well, the LEI code, obviously, plus the primary name, potential other names, and this LEI has many. Then what is also new with the Search 2.0 is that the registration authority code, and I think that's a concept that is known to many of you, is now resolved into the names that are available on the RA code list, which is also available on our website. And you can now see, well, Citigroup Inc. is registered at the Division of Corporations in Delaware under this number here. And the entity legal form is incorporated. Below that, you have the addresses, at least the legal address and the headquarters address, but it can be more if more are registered. And then further down, the registration details. This is not news for those who know already the Search 1.0, but we have now some more information about the LEI issuer, including the website. And now the part that is completely new in version 2 is the so-called level 2 data, the ownership information. So we see now that Citigroup Incorporated does not report parents. It reports parent reporting exception because there is no parent, it's non-consolidating. But what you can see is that there are a lot of children, 767 children who are ultimately consolidated by Citigroup Incorporated, and 15 children that are directly consolidated by Citigroup Incorporated. And what you can also do now, if you see these triangles here, you can click here and then you can get the children of the children, and you can basically expand the children tree. And this is a very large one. So if you want, you can have fun with this. And you can also just click on any of these, and then you get to the detail page where you can see, if you go again to the level 2 data section, that Citigroup Inc. is the parent in this case, so it's all connected with each other. I'll quickly pause and ask, are there questions at this point?
Maybe one addition from my side, Christoph, and if we are talking about a parent, according to the definition of our Regulatory Oversight Committee, we are talking about a parent who has consolidated the financial figures of the daughter company in its own company. So that is the criteria where we look at to see if we have any parents.
Yeah, so we're talking about accounting consolidation parents, so in the meaning of one organization is mentioned in the balance sheet of the parent. All right. But there are other ways to find search results. Instead of just entering some text, there are also in the simple mode some simple filters. So just clear everything. We have at the moment 1.3 million LEIs registered in total. And you could now just say, okay, I only care about, say, German LEIs, and then it will automatically narrow down the result to just LEIs registered in Germany. You could say, I'm only interested in the issued ones because, like merged, retired, whatever, I'm not interested in, and only those who are categorized as a fund. And then you will see, okay, this leads to a little bit more than 6,000 results. And you might ask yourself, well, I selected Germany, why do I get a Singaporean LEI? Well, the reason is that the simple search always searches in all addresses. So the legal address is in Singapore, but the headquarters of this organization is in Germany. This is why we also found this one. We try to make it very simple to find things without having too much detailed knowledge about the technical field structure of the LEI system, actually. And what you can do if you want to go even deeper, then you can switch with this toggle to the expert mode, where you can now select what you want to search, so to speak. So you can search all the fields that come with one LEI record, but you can also search in the connected parents or children of an LEI record, and you can combine multiple of these filters. So say you are interested in all organizations who have, as part of their legal name, the word bank. This would bring you like 7,500 entities. But now only those where the ultimate parent is located in Japan. Then you will still find 3, but now out of those, you only want to see those who have children ultimately consolidated more than 3. Oopsie. Sorry. Accidentally hit the back button. Ultimate parent. Country was Japan. You can also choose any other. Children count greater than 3. And you will see there's exactly one LEI matching that, the Miyahutsu Bank. And we can see, yes, it has bank in the name. And the parents look like they are Japanese organizations, and there are more than 3 ultimate children. So that seems to work. And regarding level 2 search, back to the simple mode, there are also these 2 other modes here. You can not only search in LEIs directly, but you can also say, okay, who owns? And then one of my favorite examples is, I don't know if you know these smoothies, these fruit drinks from Innocent. So there's this company, Innocent Limited, and who would have thought that the owner is actually the Coca-Cola company? Or the other way around, if you want to see all the children of an organization, you can say who is owned by, and I'll take again my example, the Citigroup, because they have quite some children. So you will see all these 767 children that are owned directly or ultimately by Citigroup, and have them here in your search result directly. So that just as some examples what can be done with the search. Again, any questions about the new LEI search?
Maybe it's good to have a quick look at some of the questions which came up in the chat in the meantime.
Oh,
I think you have already shown the fact that we do not only have the names in English, but we also register the names of companies in the local language. There were already a few examples from Japan there. So I guess that is clear that we...
Yeah, indeed. So there's the legal name field, which is usually in the language like the organization is registered. So in your example, Japanese organizations would usually be in Japanese with their legal name, but there are other name fields where we have then either translations or transliterated versions of the name. So you would also be able to find an organization which is written originally in their legal name in a different alphabet with their Latin characters. Both is possible.
Another question was, is there any confidentiality restriction? What I would say is that all the data you are seeing here are the data which are collected from the legal entity itself by the local operating unit, the LEI issuer, and all those data will be published by the LOU itself on their website and also as part of our total database on our website.
Yes,
I don't have any directors or something registered with this, so you will never see directors with home addresses or something like that in these data.
Correct. So clear, yes, all of this is open data and can be used without any restrictions. If you look at our website at the the data agreement, then you can see you can do whatever you want with it.
Then there was a question about the downloadability of information, both in general, but also of the parents' tree.
Yes. So what we can already do is you can download the complete data sets with the golden copy and delta files, which I will show in a moment. And as we have received this, and it's actually not a surprise to us, as a frequent feedback already on the new version of the search, people are asking to have an export mode so that the result that can be exported and downloaded. And yes, we will offer this throughout this year. At the moment, it's not possible, but we'll add this functionality so that search result sets can also be downloaded in, for example, CSV versions for those who want to work with Excel and stuff like that.
Then there is a question, do you have natural persons? I would say that the first part of the answer is, if you are a business, if you are running your business not as a company, but as a sole trader, sole proprietor, and there is local legislation available which makes it mandatory that because of the fact that you are using a certain complex final product, you will have to have an LEI as well. So we do have a couple of thousand sole proprietors in our system as well.
Yeah, and while you talked, I just selected as a general category sole proprietor, which is one of the three options here. So you can see there are more than 14,000 registered LEIs for exactly this case. So in general, natural persons, no, but in the very specific situation where there are these person businesses, then there is a specific ROC policy about the sole proprietorship, and this is actually covered. So you will find some people's names here if you just look through the LEIs who are sole proprietor categorized.
Yeah. Then there is a question, can there be more than one parent if more than one company partially owns the LEI?
No. So the ownership data model based on ROC policy is in a way that there's exactly one direct and or ultimate parent, so who has a 50+% ownership. That is the parent that is registered. There are not more than one parent registered for either the ultimate or the direct parent relationship.
Exactly, because we are only looking at the financial consolidation, and that is only being done in one account of one mother. Then there is a question which is not completely sure to me, but reference data of ownerships.
Yep.
How about updates?
Yeah. So if we look at I'll remove this filter again and go back to my favorite example. I think the question is about some data about the relationships itself, and we do display this. That is who is owned by. Looking at Citigroup, and one of the, so this is a child of Citigroup Inc. And if I click on this chain symbol, I can show the relationship data, and I would see when has this relationship, so this ownership information been registered, and when has it last been updated. If that's the question, then I think it should be answered.
And I mean, since the question is also about the reference data of ownership, I'm not sure if it's reference date or reference data. If we're talking about the date, we will be looking at usually the last annual account. And this is being one of the documents which has to be supplied then to determine the ownership structure is, for example, an annual account or any other relevant document that's not there to prove the ownership.
Indeed, and one of the fields which are actually available in the data, you would have it if you downloaded the files, which we still need to show here is a reference to exactly such things. So in many cases where, I mean, we're talking about publicly available reporting here, like published annual reports, then you would also find a link to the actual report that basically establish this ownership and can then make use of this information.
And then there is a question about updates, and I think the main answer to that is all the LEIs have to be renewed at least once a year.
Same for the ownership information, by the way.
Yeah. Then a very good question, I would say, is it possible you assign a lapsed LEI to a different entity later in the future? This touches really on the core of what we're doing here, because the answer is absolutely no. You will never reuse an LEI for another entity.
Correct.
Is the relationship information only valid for the current calendar year? That touches again on the renewal, which has to be done once a year.
Plus, there's again some other information which is actually available in the files that you can download, and we should also make it available in the search. There are relationship periods recorded. So, if known, when did the relationship start, and if it's not existing anymore, when did it end? And this should also be displayed then on this relationship data sheet that we see currently.
Yeah. Then there is a question whether or not the parent is determined by the 50% of the shares or the votes. And the answer to that is no. I mean, the criteria which we are using is the financial consolidation. Usually that will, of course, I would say almost always mean that you're talking about more than 50% of the shares. But that is actually not what we're looking at. We are only looking at the fact whether or not the financial data of the daughter company are consolidated in the annual accounts of the mother company. The next question is, how do you define the country of residence for entities? How do you make sure that entities moving across countries are actually the same? And is it possible to see when an entity changes country, and if there's an entity that can testify, for example, entity A changed country from B to C? Couple of questions here. First of all, we start always with the data which the legal entity themselves provide, which are then checked by the LEI issuer to see if those are correct. That should solve, in fact, that we know in which country we are really talking about. Moving across countries, that is, I would say, one of the most beautiful things of this entire system, because given the fact that we now have an internationally unique number for a company, you will always be able to follow that company wherever it moves. I must say, it hardly ever is the case that a legal entity moves to another country without changing its legal form. So then there will be a new entity established. But if there is a real move across borders, which, for example, is possible with the European legal forms, like the Societas Europea, for example, then such a company moving from country A to B can immediately be followed in this way. I hope that answers the questions on moving across countries. What happens when the information of an enterprise is not updated for more than a year? And how do you track the dead enterprises?
Should I take this one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is basically two different questions, because one is about renewals and the other one is about entities ceasing to exist. So as you can see in the registration details, we capture a next renewal date. This means, for example, we are here again with Citigroup Incorporated, and latest on the 10th of July this year, they have to renew this in order to stay issued, which is the status that describes that is a renewed and active entity. And if this date is in the past, then you know that the renewal did not happen, and also the LEI issuer would change the status here to a status called lapsed. And that means, well, it has not been renewed. It doesn't mean that the entity doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't mean that it does exist anymore. It doesn't mean that something has changed, but it means that it has not been renewed in the 1-year time frame. And for the second part, if an entity really ceases to exist, for example, by merger or liquidation, then there are again different statuses. One is retired. That means the entity has ceased to exist, and there is also no successor organization. And there's merged. That means the organization has been merged into a different organization, and then we would also show the successor organization either as the name, or if available, then also as the LEI, and then you could click on it and see which is the successor organization.
Aggressive, this is just to add on that. So all the legal entities who obtain LEIs are by the terms and conditions obliged to renew their LEIs every year. So this is also to make sure that our data is up to date. And for the second part, how to track that legal entities. So on our website, there is also a facility called Challenge. So basically, you can also look in the current search 1.0. So in case a public user has a different opinion, or they have also the proof that for example, a lapsed LEI is being merged or it's already retired, then in this case, the user can also challenge the record, and the managing LOU will be able to revalidate and also make sure that the up-to-date data is in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Sjoerd. There is a quite generic question. What about the continuity of the LEI? Not completely sure what is meant by that.
What we can at least say is that an LEI code never walks away. So once an LEI code has been assigned, it will stay there forever and continuously. Perhaps that was the question.
Yeah. Is country based on legal address or headquarters address?
Well, both. Any address, it could be the legal address and the headquarters address, which are mandatory addresses. It could also be other addresses come with a country field. And in the context of this search, we use both. So if you search for organizations in Germany, as I have shown before, you will find all organizations which have either their legal address or their headquarters address or another address in Germany to find all of them.
Yeah. But I would say that the main classification of the legal jurisdiction in the end would be to look at the legal form of the company. I mean, in this example, which is still on the screen, you'll see that this is a Delaware company established under the laws of Delaware. So that means that the country will be the US, and the legal jurisdiction actually will be Delaware in the US, because the US states all have their own company law and their own system of incorporating companies, etc. So there is, in fact, from the point of view of the jurisdiction of companies in the US, there's no US jurisdiction, but there's only a jurisdiction per state. Then there is a question, does first registration date mean date first registered with the GLEIF or with the LEI issuer? It is with the LEI issuer when they issued the LEI to the client. And our database is updated daily.
Actually 3 times a day now with the golden copy files, and which is also the underlying basis for the LEI search here.
Yeah. So it will usually be on the same day as it's issued. It will be also available in our database. What about coverage of the GLEIF in terms of legal units, financial versus non-financial, and their relationships? Maybe we should take a step back here to the legal background of the fact that you have to have an LEI. There is a lot of legislation in the EU and the US, but also many other countries, but the main parts of legislation are in the EU and the US, I would say, on why you have to have an LEI, usually to make it easy for reporting to the financial regulators. So that means that you have seen that we now have like 1.3 million issued LEIs, which is of course a relatively small portion of the amount of companies and businesses around the world, but at least these are all involved in serious financial transactions. In the end, we want that all the LEIs in the system have information on relationships. But Christoph already showed that it is not possible to have that information from everybody because there are certain exception cases where you can't or you don't have to provide the information of your owner. One of the examples here is, for example, if the owner of a company is a natural person, then that is not registered. Then there was somebody who missed a little bit on the entity changing countries. What I was saying there is that it is the most normal way to go ahead if you move your country from country A to country B is to establish a new legal person in country B, because usually it is not possible to transfer a legal form from one country to another. So that would mean that a real new legal entity has been established, and that new legal entity will also get a new LEI then. But we do show in our systems if there is a full, let's say, merger which transfers everything from the first company to the second company. I hope that
also perhaps a general remark on changes. So we ship with the golden copy files 3 times daily. So every 8 hours we ship an update. So you would always find the latest information there, and we will see that when we go there. We also provide so-called delta files, which show the difference between either the previous update 8 hours ago or between the update from 1 day ago, 1 week ago, 1 month ago. And this includes then only LEI records who had changes in that time period. So this would be one way to find out, for example, which LEIs have been updated in the last month. And it would also show the new fields, so you could see what has been changed. And I just see that there was an update to the question, but will delta files also include the information before the update? No, they contain the information after the update. So by comparison with a local database or so, you could see what it was before. And there is one other feature that didn't make it into the new LEI search yet, but is considered, is time information. So what we intend to do is we add to these detail pages at the bottom a list of the changes per field, which would then actually include like the date of when the change happened and the old value and the new value, but that's still in the making. Yeah, actually an LEI history, exactly.
We have another 14 minutes to go, and there's still a few questions, but I suggest, Christoph, that you first would show something more about the API and the golden copy, because we've also got a few questions on those, and you'll probably answer those already when showing stuff.
Yeah, so I think we'll go, if there's nothing specific about the search now, we'll go to the API, because this should be a quick one. It's more for the technical people in your group or for your colleagues. So again, on the page, so generally on the website in LEI data, this is the section that provides you all the LEI data. and one of the sub-pages is the so-called LEI Lookup API. And can those who don't speak please mute their microphones? It's kind of disturbing.
I think.
Can you please mute your microphone, or do you have a question? Thank you.
Probably you should.
That is the intro page to the API. The application programming interface basically gives access to all LEI data. You can provide as input one LEI code or a list of up to 200 LEI codes, and as a result, you would get the full record for this one or these many LEI records in a simple-to-use JSON format. So that's the usual format that is used in web APIs. So you can basically include LEI data in your automated processes and applications at your end. It's for free. It is without any access restrictions. You don't even have to register, and you get the full data set for level 1 data at the moment. And currently, this version of the API is still based on the concatenated files, and I will come to the difference between concatenated files and golden copy files in a moment. Just heads up already, we're also planning to release a new version of the API in 2019, which would then be based on the golden copy files and also include the level 2 data and many of the things you have seen in the LEI search. If you're interested about how to access this, then I just clicked the wrong button. I wanted to click access the API, where we describe very simply the URL that you have to use. There's also a demo page available that shows how it can be used and how results can look. And there's also a documentation page which gives you everything that you need in order to make use of the GLEIF LEI Lookup API. Specific questions regarding the API?
There was one question: is the API data continuously updated as well?
Yes. So as I said, this LEI Lookup API is based on the golden copy files, which are updated every day. So this is daily updated, and the new version, which comes at a not further defined point this year, will then include also the level 2 data and based on the golden copy, and thus updated 3 times daily, like the LEI search and the golden copy files themselves.
Yeah, that also covers the latest question. We don't have a date yet when we will have the relationship information in the API, but the current planning is somewhere later this year.
Exactly. So then I would jump to the golden copy and delta files, which you can also find. So everything is always described, and it comes with documentation and even more detailed manuals. So at the bottom of each page, you typically find, for further reading, in this case, for example, the GLEIF golden copy and delta file specification and user manual. That's a many pages PDF document. So you will have fun reading this, but it really has all the details that you need to know. And regarding the question of what is the difference between the concatenated files and the golden copy files, very good question. We have answered it lengthily on this page. So you see this table here on the left side. You always see the description of the concatenated file. On the right side, the golden copy files. Just very briefly, so the golden copy files are a database version of LEI data, which takes care of some of the, let's say, consolidation tasks that users have to do themselves when they work with the concatenated files, because the concatenator files are just taking the data from each LEI issuer worldwide and concatenating them, so putting them together, as the name says. And the golden copy files take care of the transfer cases, so you won't see technical duplicates. Each LEI code is there exactly once. You won't see lost LEI codes, which happened sometimes in the past with the concatenated files when LOUs mismanaged data in rare cases. And yeah, it's just taking care of some of the consistency topics, but all of this is described in this table and in the PDF file at the bottom of the page. Generally, we recommend to use the golden copy files for let's say less headaches when working with LEI data. It really takes care of some of the very basic but annoying topics that come from a federated system. Yeah, and this is also why it is now the data that we use in the LEI search and that we will use in the new version of the API.
There was one more question on the API, Christoph. Any limitation on?
Yeah, indeed, we have some technical limitations. So we limit by IP address the number of requests. I don't have in mind currently what it is, but it's more to protect our servers. So I know that many users basically make many requests per second, and that still works. So you can just try it out if it serves your use case. If you hit the limit, if you need more, then you can contact us, and we can always talk about specific solutions. But the basic version has some limitation. I don't know it now. And there was another question: any limitation on what information or various files that can be accessed? Not sure I understand the question. So perhaps some more words on the golden copy files. If you go to the download page, then you can see here we offer 3 files per day, always from 0, 8, and 16 o'clock. This is UTC plus 0. And you can download these full files in different file formats. So you get it in XML, JSON, or CSV here. And if you're interested in the Delta files, then you get them here for the various files. So LEI CDF 2.1, this is the level 1 data describing the LEI records themselves. RR CDF, these are the relationship records describing the parent information. Reporting exceptions, this is this opt-out that we described earlier, where you can see why a certain organization has not reported parents. And here you can select whether you want the delta compared to 8 hours earlier, 24 hours earlier, 7 days earlier, one month earlier. And then you can again select which file format you want to download, and then you get that. Who can submit entries into the LEI database? So this is all provided by LOUs, but I think this is a topic for Ricco or Shuya.
No, I would say you're fully right. The central LEI database is completely being populated by the local LEI issuers. I'm not sure about this LEI, what you're mentioning here, but
yeah, I'm actually aware of this case. So this was accidentally created. But as you can see, the registration status is annulled, which means there was a technical or whatever mistake. And just for the reason that we do not remove LEI codes, we will forever keep this in the system, but clearly highlight it with this annulled status that it has been annulled and it's not valid.
But indeed, it is also a good example to show that we will keep all LEIs ever issued in the system, including their current status, so that you will always be able to find something back.
There's another case where the status would be duplicate. So with a federated system, it can, in rare cases, happen that the same organization, especially in larger organizations where sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand does, request 2 LEIs, perhaps even with 2 different LEI issuers. But this is usually detected by our duplicate checking mechanisms or the challenge management facility. And then even in this case, we would keep both codes, but the one code would be highlighted as duplicate, and there would be a reference then to the active code. So you have full transparency actually of what happened.
And this is also a nice example for a question which we haven't answered earlier yet. The question was about the continuity of the LEI. Is it connected to the continuity of the legal unit's ID continuity or something else? I mean, if you look at this screen, you will see two different statuses. If you scroll a little bit up, Christoph, you will see the entity status. So that is the status of the legal entity itself, which is in this case inactive because was the test case. But you will see the same, for example, if an organization is dissolved, you will also see that in the entity status. And on the page below, you will see the registration status, which in this case was annulled. So you will always find two statuses in our system. And the first one is connected to you could say, to whether or not the company itself is still alive. And the other one is purely about the status of the LEI belonging to the company.
Yep, the management status, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything else you would like to show, Christoph?
Thank you. My presentation is done.
All right, thank you very much. I was also very happy to see a lot of questions coming to us in the chat, and there's one new question. Any restrictions on redisseminating the data?
Answer is no. Again, the data is open. We have signed the Open Data Charter. You can do everything with the data, including redissemination.
Are there any remaining questions before we close the call? How many languages are supported in the LEI database?
All languages. So if there is a case where a Saudi Arabian organization is registered in English, then either they are also registered in the business register or the LEI issuer had a specific reason to do it that way. But technically, we support UTF-8, which means all characters in all languages.
And you've seen already a couple of examples coming along where we had the language in Japanese or Chinese on this page. So everything is possible, and it also depends on how the company itself registers with the LEI issuer. All right, then I would like to conclude this call. Thank you very much for everybody for being with us today. If there are any follow-up questions, you have my email address from the invitation for the call. So you can always send us more questions or specific things where you want to work together or whatever. And also Fabio Tomasini from the Swiss Statistical Office is of course available for your questions within the Wiesbaden Group. And I just want to say thank you all for being here. And if there's anything else we can do, please let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.